We can't pay that. You'll bankrupt all the courts. All the banks will go bankrupt. Not true. Okay, in this hand here, you've got a $25 million check. Now, you're going to confess that you wrote this. You're going to pay $25 million to the Justice Department. The Justice Department is going to get $17.5 million of the penalty, and the whistleblower is going to get $7.5 million for every one of these confessions. Then the whistleblower is going to sign a contract. He's going to get $500,000 in cash. Well, that'll be negotiated anywhere from $500,000 to say $2.5 million, depending on what you need, how big your family is, what your liabilities are. That's negotiable. But the initial thing was $500,000. Okay. Now we've got $7 million left over, and you have to buy a $7 million CD at the bank that just screwed you, who paid a $25 million judgment to the government. What happens when you buy the $7 million CD? They get to fraction bank it at 10-to-1, making $70 million and selling it to MasterCard at 18% interest. And in 9 months, the $25 million is all paid back in interest to MasterCard. The bank goes, we're going to make excuse my French, a shit house of money. And the bank, 10 days later, walked into Kamala Harris's office and said, we got a check here for $26 billion. We'd like to settle this lawsuit. And all the homeowners get paid. March 6, 2012. 10 days after I met with the banks in Oceanside, California. Now that they had a remedy, the banks, Kamala Harris got $19 billion. The United States government immediately took $7 billion, stuck it into the Treasury in the state of California. Kamala Harris then had to hire a staff of individuals, screen out the applications, get all the forms worked, the paperwork done. I have those with me, by the way, for those that need the forms. They're involved with lawsuits with me right now. And the bank is waiting for their redeposit of the $70 million for every $25 million they paid out on. And this is I have all 50 federal attorney generals and 1,000 staff members, which are all assistant attorney generals, working with me on this. Now, they are hiring 3,000 more attorneys to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office to process 22 million foreclosures in the United States. When you divide 22 million by 4,000 attorneys, that's going to take a while, especially with all the paperwork involved. It's going to result in an $8 trillion a year windfall for a government that functions on $2 trillion a year and only collects $500 billion a year in revenue from the IRS, from taxes. So this is a 16-to-1 payback with my technology. Who am I? I am the cash cow of the United States Treasury. Why do they leave me alone? Why do they let me do what I do? It's because the United States government would not exist after 1997 if it wasn't for me. I paid off the last national debt in 16 months. They were $8 trillion in debt. They not only paid it back, but on November 2nd, 1999, we had $6 trillion surplus in the United States Treasury, entering the third international bankruptcy. And so now, as of last week, we were $17 trillion in debt. With this technology, it's affecting everything. And every single lawsuit, yesterday, Bank of America wrote a check for $2.46 billion for false and misleading information on the wording for the contract for the Bank of America Employees Pension Fund. Biggest single settlement in the Bank of America in the United States pension history. But that is trivia compared to the 26 billion that was written in California to settle the cases, and the 74 billion that has currently been paid out to date on the $400 billion lawsuit, which is at the New York Securities and Exchange Commission for false misleading information to sell bad mortgages to the Securities and Exchange with a second-grade reading level. Henceforth, this document. But under the Clayton Act, they're going for 4 times damages of $1.6 trillion against the banks. This is just the first 1% of the 22 million cases that are out there. There's a 3% bottleneck in the United States court system. It will take 30 years to go through the 22 million foreclosures. That's why they've hired it. They want to bring this down to 10 years instead of 30 years. Question?
I'm just curious on the, you mentioned 7 million going to the CD.
You get the interest off it on a yearly basis besides your 5. Just like you win the lottery, you get the interest from the lottery for 20 years. The state keeps the initial chunk of money that you just won, $300 million, and you get the interest off it. It's more money than you can spend within reason against paying for all your toys that you would fantasize for any individual. And it keeps, really isn't any money around out there. Everything's got to be working. Interest is a working condition of money. So every time they have a problem, they come to me saying, here's the information, sort it out. And it takes me just a couple seconds because I've been doing this since 1997 when I issued new money in the United States.
So does that go on indefinitely, or is there a time frame that will stop?
There will always be a condition of foreclosure. There will always be people in bad luck. There will always be, the new contracts, however, have to be written in a new parsé syntax grammar.
I'm referring to the 7 million CD that I get personally.
No, that'll be just a 10-year contract.
10 year. Okay.
That you'll have a one-time payout at the end of 10 years. That'll give them a time to, they may bill out MasterCard at, I think it's currently is 14.6%, giving you a 7% commission off of that. 7 times 7 is 49, so that's $500,000 a year for 10 years on top of that, and then a windfall of 7 at the end, which would be reasonable. The bank makes $70 million off the top of that at a 10-to-1 fraction, where they're only paying you paying you the face value of 7, but actually collecting on 63 million all the interest. See?
Give me time to gear up and get used to the cash flow before I get
Yeah, I'm sure McDonald's will appreciate you. Yes.
But basically, with that all being said, then these banks, they're not going to fight.
Right. In other words, the banks will say, "Oh, you finally caught me. Okay, yeah, I confess. No prison, and we're going to go ahead and negotiate this plan. You guys win. The federal government gets $17.5 million. They win. The IRS, now, everyone, you're entitled to your minimum wage, $8 an hour. You work 8,700 hours a year on your property to guard the home and the farm. At minimum wage, that's $87,400 a year for the husband and the wife. Anybody on title. Times the amount of years you've owned the property. And under the Clayton Act, it's 4 times that. Then your down payment on the property, if you refinanced, the value of the house you put up for the refinance is the down payment times 4. So it's not a $500,000 property. It was refinanced at 7. The $500,000 value that was refinanced now becomes 4 times at $2 million. So we're talking about a few extra bucks here. Okay, this is taxable income. This goes to, you have your caretaker fees, then you have 4 times your damages. Now the Rescissions Act stipulates under Title 15, Section 1636A, that you must give a 3-day notice that you're going to engage in a false and misleading mortgage contract with only one person signing. That didn't happen in all 22 million or 64 million foreclosures. And the Title 15, Section 1639A stipulates that if they didn't stop and correct the mistake within 3 years of the mortgage refinance, that they are liable to return all the interest to you since the first day, and under the rescissions under the Clayton Act, you get 4 times the interest paid in. Those you can pull off your IRS forms that you filed with the taxes. These numbers are then calculated by you let's see here. And this is the form that the United States government created. Well, it's not the real form. This form was originally written in adverb verb. The form was because you are filing quantum lawsuits to get paid because you have forensic evidence of fraudulent grammar and fraud that's been perpetrated on you. This was also engineered as a fraud so the United States government could keep all of the money, because on the bottom here it says under Title 15, Section 1692E, if you use false and misleading information on this document, you now are vacating your position to collect. And Title 18, 1001, fictitious conveyance of grammar. So if you file a quantum in this hand but file a false claim on this hand, you vacate this claim and you don't get paid anything, and the government gets to keep the whole $25 million for themselves. So I syntaxed this and wrote a brand new form in quantum grammar using the correct parse syntax grammar and filled in all the spaces with the correct parse syntax grammar. Now, if I ask you a question, what is the address of your property? ADD, no rest, which means I just said, what is your no contract property? And you answer me. Therefore, you've stepped onto a landmine. If I ask you, what is the location? If I made the statement, for the location of the property is with the claim of the claimant. That's a correct statement. Now I gave you a location, and I made you a claimant. Gold miners didn't file mortgages. They didn't file deeds of trust. They filed claims for their property. And gold was an authority. So therefore, I quantumized this, and now time to match your quantumized lawsuit as a quantumized claim. United States Attorney's Office got this. We have a collection agency with Tyrone, Tyrone, Williams out of Arkansas. Now, the first 4 collection agencies that we had hired were threatened with concrete overthrows. They dropped out. Tyrone Williams was also approached with the same argument. So I intervened. I said to the U.S. Attorney's Office, this is quantum. You're going to get $17.5 million for every lawsuit I wrote. Based on 4 times damages, the average person is going to get $3 million. The government's going to take 1.5 for the IRS. Trustees are going to be paid. Anybody in bankruptcy right now, the bankruptcy trustee is going to be presented with this formula. The bankruptcy trustee is going to see that, one, you're going to get a windfall of $7 million, or whatever. In the case of bankruptcy, you will get a check to discharge all your debts, pay off everything, and whatever's left over will wind up being refinanced this way, plus whatever monies you need to be comfortable. This over here goes to the IRS. I don't know about the IRS liability of this, but if you add this to this, the average lawsuit I write is a $20 million windfall for the United States government. Now the judge says to me, we're going to dismiss this. This is gobbledygook. This makes no sense whatsoever. I said to the judge, I says, you know, Your Honor, I'm here in Honolulu, Hawaii. There's a judge in front of Judge Kern. They got 22 people here. I'm a claimant in all the lawsuits. I says, $25 million a pop, plus $3 million for the IRS. That's $28 million a pop. I says, I don't know what your pay grade is. I says, but you start costing the government $28 million for every person sitting here, times 22, that's $1.4 billion. You're not going to have a job very long. I recuse myself. Before I get kind of getting ahead there. After I said that to him, he says, who are you? How dare you talk to me like that? I held up my oath of office and says, I'm the Chief Federal Judge of the Hawaiian Islands, and I believe I have a warrant for your arrest over here. And right then and there, he recuses himself and he walks out of the courtroom. Well, in comes another judge, Kobayashi. I want appearances. So I gave my name, and first thing out of my mouth was, I says, I saw you standing in the door, so I heard you, I know you heard what what Judge Kern just heard. I says, and I looked at my list and I says, I believe I have a warrant for your arrest. And he ran out of the courtroom too. Then Judge Mulloway, she's the chief federal judge of district court in Hawaii, she comes walking in. I know you don't have an arrest warrant for me, she says, because I was appointed by President Obama just last year. I says, oh, fair enough, I'm still the chief federal judge here and you're a district court judge. I says, oh, by the way, I have your oath of office here. It's written in adverb verb, so therefore you're not a chief federal judge. You're not any kind of a judge. You're just an actor in black robes. I don't care who you are. I don't care what person's name is in this courtroom. If David Miller's name is on there, I want you in this courtroom on April 12th, 2012, at 9 o'clock in the morning. So all 22 of us showed up on April 12th, 9 o'clock, and I walked into the courthouse and got 6 marshals standing in front of me. Judge Miller, do you have your credentials? I says, yep, here's my oath of office, here's my warrants. Are you here to arrest our judges? I'm going, no, I'm just here to go to court. I've got a 9 o'clock appointment upstairs. He says, would you guys like to come with me? He says, well, yeah. He says, we're going to have to. He says, we have orders to accompany you when you enter the building for everyone's protection. He says, who are all these other people? I says, oh, they all were ordered to be here, along with all the attorneys and all the mortgage companies. He says, well, you're the only ones here. What's this all about? I says, I put a 15-month freeze on all the foreclosures in the Hawaiian Islands. And 5 of the 6 marshals were in foreclosure. And I all shook my hand going, oh, thank you for not having us kicked out of our home. So they were all in my, I said, would you guys like to come upstairs with me? So we all tiptoed upstairs in Kern's office. We go walking in, and as soon as I walked in the door, Judge runs out of the courtroom because I got a warrant for his arrest. And I walk up to the clerk and says, well, we're here. Where's Mulloway? He ordered us to be here. And he says, oh, I'll go check. Runs in the back room. There's a whole bunch of screaming going on back there. The clerk comes out all red in the face, and he goes like, the judge has ordered the courthouse closed and ordered his courtroom closed, and everyone is ordered to vacate the building. I says, well, where's Judge Mulloway? You got to go down to the clerk's office and find out. I says, well, the judge just ordered the courthouse closed. So the 6 marshals and I, we go down to the clerk's office, and I have a order opening the court up, ordering with me. I was prepared for all this. I walk to the clerk, says, I'm ordering the courthouse open as chief federal judge. He stamps it, signs it, and I sign it. I said, by the way, where is everybody? Well, the phone's over there, go call. So I called the chief judge's secretary, and she picks up. She says, all the judges in the courthouse are on a plane flying to San Francisco. Judge Kern is the only judge in the courthouse, and he ordered the courthouse closed, which is illegal, can't shut down the federal government. So right then and there, I says, well, all the judges committed treason, vacated their posts, and left the country because they're in international space. So now we got a new complicated lawsuit that I'm putting together. So every time I show up in Honolulu, it's World War III, it's... So these forms were critiqued so that they match your quantum lawsuits, so that you have, I've taken all the precautions necessary so that your language is correct. I took all the boxes off the paperwork, so there's no boxes. The only thing, when the judge, when somebody asks you a question, like, what is the location of your property? Well, you have to have all the words defined, which is in the lawsuit. You have to have your name and address to be legal as far as understanding what an ownership of location is. That's in the lawsuit. You have to have a cause and effect as to why you have ownership and why the bank doesn't. That's in the lawsuit. Because possession is 9 points of the law, and no one ever gave you a legitimate contract, and you've been the caretaker, trustee, and guardian of the property, which puts you on it, and there is no contract And I mean the word know is an adverb making contract to be a verb, which is an adverb verb fiction. So there is no paper in existence on planet Earth that says you do not own the property as being the original settler on the property. As the American Indians, even though we know the military moved them off, didn't have writing. They didn't have treaties. There has never been a correct parse, syntax, grammar contract written for that object, and because you are the only person on it, under the maritime law of salvage, are the only people that have ever existed as original owners. Do you have a mortgage? The answer is no. Do you have a debt? The answer is no. Do you own the land? The answer is yes, because possession's 9 points until somebody can show you a correct parse, syntax, grammar contract that says otherwise. So if the world of fiction wants to play the world of fiction, that's one thing. But when Iceland got a hold of this, Iceland forgave all the mortgages in Iceland back in March this year, rather than pay $25 million a pop to Wall Street. So everyone's title clear in Iceland now, even though it's a very small country. Yes?
Now, if you're a good old boy and you just bought a place and everything's current, how would you go about knowing the documents fraud? How would you go about, would have to get in contact with you? Or
You can bring a lawsuit against the bank with the existing contract that you have right now and follow the procedures of suing for false and misleading information, excuse me, on the contract and showing where the bank had Lodial, L-O-D-I-A-L, title to the property. If you're the only person standing and nobody has claim to it and you're on the property, under 1 year moratorium, technically you own the property. If you...
Are you saying you have to live there 1 year?
Yeah, you'd have to be there 1 year under 1 year damage claim. That no one's ever filed a damage claim against you for false and misleading information. Okay?